Hey, what's up everyone? So, I finished working on this mower, well I'm about to, and the idea came to me about talking about aftermarket carburetors. So I want to go over that and kind of go over a couple things, kind of your do's, your don'ts, some good practices, and generally my opinion, and that's pretty key, it's my opinion on what should be used, how to use it, if you should use it, and so on and so forth. So, moving forward, I do have to say, it's kind of mandatory. If you like what you see, consider subscribing. I post a couple times a week. Hopefully, eventually, I'll get to the machine that you have, and maybe I can help you fix it, assuming I haven't already. Now that that's mandatory parts done, let's go ahead and get to work. So, right here is a OEM carb. The reason why we're replacing that carb is there is actually a small crack in the seat for the needle. Can't really repair that, so you can buy that carb OEM very easily. I mean, they're not hard to find whatsoever. They might be here soon, but that's a different story. These, however, are very easy. They're cheap, they're quick, get them pretty much anywhere, and they generally make your machine run, which in my opinion is a good thing. Cost comparison. I paid $18. I thought it was $20, but no, $18 for this carb. It is not bad. I mean, when you hold like a carburetor that's aftermarket compared to a OEM one, you can feel, I mean, just without the bowl on it, this is about the same weight. So, you know, you can tell there's a reason why it's cheaper. But let us go ahead and take a look at it. It's something you should always do when you get aftermarket carb on pretty much anything. Make sure it's the same size. Everything is the same for the butterfly. All that's good. You can continue on moving it to the side. The fuel is on the same side, about the same location. You're going to see small variations of, you know, maybe this is a little bit different, or, I mean, obviously that Welch plug is different than that one, you know, so those are fine. Going to the other side. Now this one does not have the choke. There's a story, but I'm not going to get into that. But we'll just say this is the same choke. So that is good. Everything looks to be good. So what should we do next? Well, now we know it's done. This is my tip. The jetting in this is complete crap. 100%. Don't really trust it. I sometimes will take a chance, and sometimes about 80% of the time it will work. That 20% of the time, it's just kind of annoying. And even when they do work, I feel like it's still either a little lean or a little rich, and it's fine. They're not going to, probably not even notice that much of a difference, but if you're super picky, go ahead and do this, what I'm going to show you. We're going to take the bowl off. You should do this anyway because for whatever reason, I'm assuming the shipping, sometimes the float likes to get stuck. It's not really stuck now, so it should be good. So now that we have that off, we are going to need to take, not with that we're not, we'll take the jet out of the new one. Eventually, there we go. The emulsion tube might be a good idea too as well. It's not as of an importance, but definitely the jetting. I'll take out the emulsion tube, why not? Sometimes the emulsion tube is a little bit different. And next we're going to take our known good jet with the carb that came with the mower. And we will go ahead and do two things. One, we're going to see if it's clean, which it should be. It was just cleaned. But we are going to also kind of do a quick look and see if it's roughly the same as the one that came in the machine, or in the new carb. And hopefully they match. If not, then we will get into what to do next. And as I suspected, it's a little hard for you to see, but this one's significantly smaller. We'll just double check that. Get some light here. And it's not that much smaller, but it's still smaller. So, emulsion tube. Looks to be about the same. I actually kind of like the new emulsion tube better. So, let's go ahead and put the new tube in there. Old jet. And don't be alarmed if it slides in like that. The threading on the first, I don't know, half inch is meant for the bowl nut, which is wider. So that makes it a little more tricky to remove it sometimes. But it's screwed in there. You see the emulsion tube. It's good to go. We can now go ahead and put our bowl back on. Make sure that's good to go. We'll hand tighten it because we have our wrench here. Tighten. There we go. Doesn't need to be super tight. But now we have pretty much everything that this was designed to run the engine on transferred over into that. So there is one other thing. If yours has any type of additional jutting, sometimes there's a black plastic piece or something in here, you're going to want to transfer that over. Sometimes these are brass jets that you can take out with a really small screwdriver. This one's not one of them. So unfortunately, we're going to have to pretty much hope that that's right. Now, let's say that did not screw in. Maybe the threads are different. It is aftermarket. Maybe they use a different type. And what you're going to want to do is get yourself a micro drill bit set. And find the one that fits your current jet, the one that came with the mower, snugly. It should be literally this. Even a little bit loose is too loose. It should not have any play in it at all. If it is, it's the wrong size. It should be the perfect size. Then drill out your new one. The only problem is if you run into the time, which I never really ran across, where it's too big. It's almost always too lean, so the hole's too small. You're just gonna have to use the one that came with it, unfortunately. You potentially could buy new jets, but then at that point you're probably reaching that cost of you should have just bought the OEM one, and that's not good. So now that we have the carb pretty much ready to go on, install it like normal, and you should be good to go. Couple things that usually come with a aftermarket kit. Let's go over a couple of those items. They'll usually provide the gasket. Look at it, make sure it's the right one. Should be. Sometimes they're not, oddly enough. And if it's a good higher quality, it's the same thickness as the other one, use it. That's not a problem. Oh, the fuel shut-off valve. These are a good, horrible thing. They're good if you need it for emergency, like you need to use it today while you wait for the OEM one to come in the mail. But in general, these are crap. They'll start leaking pretty quickly, but I would keep it just in case you are in that emergency. So we'll put this in the keep file. And then we have the fuel filter. This is a paper filter. This should not be used in a gravity-fed system, so this is garbage. But if yours came with a fuel filter, just had a little screen, they're usually white, they're really tall and super narrow. Those are good. Those are fine. If your machine didn't come with one, then don't feel obligated to install it. Obviously, the manufacturer didn't see it was a good idea, so why should you? But for peace of mind, you can. So that's going in the trash. Fuel line. This fuel line is one step above hot garbage. It is really not that good. It's already a little stiff. The diameter is probably wrong. The fuel line clips are, what is that? I mean, it's huge. I don't even know. I wouldn't use that. This is also going to be in that garbage file. Then we have the spark plug. So, a while back, I made a piston character, welded it up, and I used a spark plug to kind of act like a cigarette. I saw it online, thought it was fun, had some free time, and it was a good project because I had a lot of spark plugs laying around. The reason why is because this is total garbage. Don't use them. You can, if it's an emergency. I keep them in case of an emergency, one of every type. That way, I've never personally ran into a spark plug emergency on my own equipment, but if I did, I know I at least could have one until the time it takes me to go to the hardware store or wherever you get your spark plugs and get the NGK equivalent, or Champion, or Briggs, whatever the brand that you have is. So, in general, keep it for emergency only, but in majority of the time, if you have 2 or 3 of them that come in your kit, just throw all except for one away. And then finally, we have more gaskets. Same thing as the other gaskets, just make sure that they're decent quality, they're not ripped, they're not super paper thin. They're paper, but they shouldn't be like notebook paper thin and cardboard paper, that type of material. So that's generally what you get in an aftermarket kit. You can also get air filters. This air filter came with mine. It's okay, not bad. It looks to be roughly a good copy. It's okay, I'm not going to worry too much about it. So, air filter, in my opinion, is probably okay to use. You're going to want to double check, look at it, make sure you can't see complete and total light beaming through it if you look at it through like a light or the sun. Don't look at the sun, by the way. But just in general, look at the one that came out and make sure it's roughly about the same quality. If it is, put it in. Why not? Then this didn't come with this kit, but this comes from a 2-cycle project from long ago, probably. But this is a bulb. Goes on top of the carb. If you're replacing like a leaf blower carb or something like that, you're more likely than not going to get like 2 or 3 of these in the aftermarket kit. I would keep this because those do break. They probably break a lot faster, but this is super easy to replace. Pretty much just need a screwdriver and a little bit of time, and that's it. So this I would keep. So if you get a couple of those, go ahead and keep them. Going back to the fuel line, if you get the clear fuel line, let's say you're working on that same leaf blower project, and you get those bulbs, and you get some fuel line, they're okay. It's not the greatest, but they'll last a few years. They'll last even longer if you don't put ethanol fuel in them. If you don't put ethanol fuel in them, they'll last about 80% as long as a good quality name brand line would. But even then, that's a few years. That line is cheap, so weigh your consequences on, do you want to spend the extra money or just use this and have to replace it a year or 2 early? I just use it. So that, everybody, is what generally you get in the aftermarket kit, and a couple tricks that I found of what to use, how to modify it to fit yours to best give the better resemblance of a complete and total OEM experience. Now here is a little bonus. Whoever stayed on this long, we'll go over a couple things as well. So what are the benefits of using the aftermarket one? Really, in my opinion, the only 2 benefits is cost savings and time savings. Like I said, I don't remember how much this is, but I want to say it was $40 to $60 OEM, which isn't horrible. The owner doesn't really want that. He wants as cheap as possible. So, you know, less than a third of the price, you get the whole aftermarket carb, was a lot more appealing to him. But something that also is appealing is this probably would have taken, unless you pay for pretty expensive shipping, a couple days at the minimum. At least where I live, probably around 5 to 7 days. I ordered this yesterday. It came from Amazon the next day. It's hard to beat that time, especially when I want this machine off my table. And when the owner wants to be using it as soon as possible too, time could be a pretty big determining factor. The downside is you do have to do this type of stuff. You do have to look at it. You do have to make sure that it's the right type, which you should still do with the OEM one, make sure they sent you the right one. But in general, aftermarket carbs, you do run the risks. Let's say the most common thing I see is like on a steel aftermarket carb, the two posts that you have to put the carb on to secure it to the intake. Sometimes they're drilled differently and almost always too small, of course. So you have to modify it. Or the way the throttle cable is just a little bit off, or just weird stuff like that. So that can be a real big downfall, and that time savings of you sending it back, buying another one, having it sent back over, that time savings is now gone. Now you're really just going after the money savings, which is not big of a importance to you. And maybe an OEM one is just a better idea, even if you do have to wait a little extra. But in general, if you follow that rule I showed you, switching out the jets, looking at everything, making sure you spend a little extra time right now, you should have a pretty good experience. Just to kind of show you, I'm going to put this on the mower, and then I don't have a video of this mower working because, well, that's why they brought it to me. But I'll show you that it runs pretty decently, and we'll leave it at that. Carburetor is now installed. Let's go ahead and give it a pull. I have not started this yet. I turned the fuel line on, and that's about it. Let's make sure. There was a flooding problem with the other one because of that problem I was mentioning, so let's make sure starts it up again. Well, there you have it. I think we are good to go. I'll go ahead and leave you at that. Like you see, keep on watching, subscribe, follow me on Instagram at SmallEngine101, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good night.